Welcome to Daily Devo. I'm Pat. Today we're going to talk about the power of choice. There are many things that we take for granted. So many things that we go day after day and think little about. The air we breathe, the freedoms we have, the job we possess, the friends and family in our lives, the fact that our heart is beating. The list could go on, couldn't it? But as I pondered the many things we take for granted, one that came to mind was the power of choice. I don't often contemplate and revel in the truth that I have the power to make so many choices, good or bad. Well, near the end of James chapter 1, he talks about the power of choice, but not ours. He actually talks about God's choice. Now, before we look at the specific verse, let me remind you of the context. In the previous few verses, James has been arguing that the goodness of God, or he's been arguing about the goodness of God. He's been making it clear that evil and temptation do not come from God. And now it's as if he puts a capstone on this reasoning with this. Look at the first part of James chapter 1, verse 18. James writes, "He," meaning God, "chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word." The question is he talking about the first birth or second birth? When James states he chose to give us birth, is he speaking about our physical birth, the creation of us, or is he speaking about our spiritual rebirth, our salvation? Which is it? I think the answer is yes. The second doesn't happen without the first. So James is saying that the creation of our lives and the salvation purchased for us was an act of God's will by his true word. Now, there's a lot packed into these few words in the first part of this verse, but let me just settle on two of the words. He chose. Listen to it again. He chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word. He chose to do this. Now you may be thinking, so what? Take a little journey with me in your mind. Let's go back, like way back. Let's go back to before anything existed, meaning there is nothing but God. There are no animals, there's no people, there's no planets, there's no oxygen, there's no molecules, there's not even any atoms. There's only God. And since we know that he is the only self-existent and self-reliant one in the universe, he doesn't need anything or anyone at that point. It's not as if God is sitting in eternity past, bored out of his mind, thinking, wow, I need someone or something. That's critical for us to grasp. Because when he chooses, remember those two words, he chose, when he chooses to create you and I, he knows what it will cost him. He wasn't surprised by what Adam and Eve did. He wasn't surprised by what evil would do to this world. He wasn't surprised that the only way he could make it right is to come to this little ball of energy called earth, take on flesh, and eventually take the sin of the world on himself. That means every rape, every murder, every lie, every gossip, every war, all of it would fall on him. None of this surprised God. He knew this, and yet look what he did. James 1:18, he chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word. Right now, would you just pause and close your eyes? And not if you're driving your car. Keep your eyes open if you're driving. But if you're able, would you just close your eyes and out loud, would you just say these simple words to our God, our precious Jesus, who knew the cost in creating us, who knew the cost to redeem us, and yet because of his great love, chose to create you and me and redeem you and me. Would you just say these simple words to him? Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jesus.